So this week I'm going to be answering questions 1 and 4. So to start off with question 1, according to home ownership, race, and wealth, what is the difference between income and wealth? Um, the author argues that wealth would provide a more telling explanation for racial inequality. Why is that? Based on the course material for the week, please give 3 reasons for the widening racial wealth gap. So in race, home ownership, and wealth, a wealth perspective is the way to examine the quote-unquote playing field. It is described to help connect the past to the present and provides a way to refresh our historical memory of race itself. So wealth also has significant implications for affirmative action and the concepts of equality. And so the definition of wealth is a family's financial resources minus all of the debts. And wealth is special because it represents ownership and control of resources, whereas income essentially is the earnings or payments that end up replacing the earnings. So racial economic inequality has 2 different dimensions, the first being the conceptual distinction between income and assets. Income represents the flow of resources earned in a particular time period, and assets are a stock of resources that are saved or invested. So using these definitions, income is typically used for day-to-day necessities, while assets are used for providing life chances, providing future opportunities, securing prestige, passing along one's family status, and securing economic stability and security for present and future generations. The second dimension is quantitative, to what extent there are assets parity between blacks and whites. Without sufficient assets, it is very difficult to make it through American society with full economic security. And the explanation for the wealth gap could be due to class-based achievements, and these could be occupation, education, or income-based. And then question 4, according to the book chapter in More Than Just Race, Wilson argues that culture is a response to concentrated poverty and racial inequality, not the cause. What does that mean? What are the cultural effects of living in racially segregated neighborhoods? If culture is such an important factor to consider, why are so many sociologists afraid to use cultural explanations to understand racial inequalities? How would an approach that combines culture and structure provide a useful analytical framework to understand racial inequality? So what I think Wilson means by culture was brought out by those who lived in similar environments, who faced similar inequalities from the rest of the world. And so belonging to a culture didn't cause the concentrated poverty of racial inequality to occur. The cultural effects are nationwide views on race and cultural traits. So living in racially segregated areas only provides you with one perspective, and that is the perspective of your people or the people that you live with. This also will influence how the rest of the world sees your community and how they will end up judging you and those around you, because that is inevitable. And cultural traits are also acquired because you are surrounded by individuals that you are most similar to. And again, this also can lead to yourself and the individuals you're surrounded by to have a distinct view from the rest of the world based on what you do, and then also you will have a distinct view on the rest of the world based on your cultural traits. People are also very passionate about their people and where they come from, so I think that's why it's very hard to deep dive and analyze different cultures, because you have the chance of offending somebody, or even an entire culture of people for that matter, depending on how you word things. And I think possibly picking one topic and then analyzing every culture at a surface level is possibly the first way to start using cultural explanations to understand racial inequalities. And this would be a way to not single out one culture over another. And then this can potentially build a system where comparisons can be used to understand why these racial inequalities exist, and determining if it has to do with behaviors or in a way certain people act, and maybe whatever else it is will be shown through this. And then my questions that I'm going to pose for the week, the first one being, Is there a difference in the way that different cultures will accumulate wealth? How do they differ, and do the differences offer any advantages? And my second question is, why do you believe that many social observers are not paying attention to indirect forces such as political and economic that contribute to racial inequality?